is simply a group of scalar waves that flash on and off but stay in one spot. So instead of even thinking of the term DNA, you can think of consciousness. Your consciousness is flashing on and off through these scalar waves. So that's what you're composed of, billions of scalar waves. So you're flashing on and off from source billions of times per second into manifestation. What determines how much of your consciousness you can flash on and how much light you are is how many of these fire letters of your DNA are turned on. So a good example is right now, it's Christmas time. And a lot of people have Christmas trees up. And they have Christmas lights, right? So imagine you as a Christmas tree, and there are 15 strands of lights that go around the tree, from the bottom of the tree to the top of the tree. Those represent the 15 dimensions of your consciousness. So the first 3 strands at the bottom are turned on for most people. That's the physical, emotional, and mental bodies. Strands 1, 2, and 3. Chakras 1, 2, and 3. But above that, most of the lights are turned off. So that means you cannot access anything higher than the 3rd dimension, for most of humanity. That those of you who haven't done DNA activation, they have heard about the higher self, but they never experienced that because it's a catch-22. You can't experience your higher self until you activate the DNA corresponding to those levels. And so the Christmas tree is only turned on the first 3 lights and the rest is off. So in order to turn the 12 other strands on, we have to activate DNA strands 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And if you have more than 12 strands in your DNA template, you can activate your Rishi self, which is dimensions 13, 14, and 15. So that's a definition of DNA that goes beyond the physical. The observable portions and chemical translations of scalar wave programs that exist in the morphogenetic field. So we live in a multi-dimensional reality. And the interesting thing about it is that all the dimensions exist in the same space. How could that be? Well, in order to go from dimension 3 to dimension 4, what has to happen inside your cells is a shift. And that involves something called ARPS, angular rotation of particle spin inside your cells has to shift 45 degrees. And this is all built into the original DNA template. And so to evolve spiritually, you don't evolve spiritually by going into the Himalayas and meditating in a cave for 30 years. You don't evolve spiritually by just doing yoga. You don't evolve spiritually just by going to workshops where you're walking on fire. The only way you evolve spiritually is by clearing yourself and activating the DNA strands that correspond to your higher dimensions of consciousness. Or you have someone else do that. Every master in history that's been on the earth has had assistance with their DNA activation. Jesus, Buddha, everyone. Because the DNA doesn't activate naturally anymore. It used to be that at these certain times, you know, like the time we're in right now, interdimensional frequency would come into the earth and it would interact with your DNA and it would turn on those fire letters, so it would raise your frequency and the frequency of the earth, and then we would just ascend naturally to the next dimension up. And that's how we would evolve up the 15th dimensional scale. But there's so many distortions and interferences and blockages that now we require to do this manually. And if we don't do it now, then what happens is the energy comes into the earth, it hits that energetic blockage, and then it makes your body deteriorate even more. And so that's why we have so many people interested in this work. We have so many people, you know, desiring to get clear. And this is just going to get more and more busy from now until December 21st, 2012. So for those of you who are practitioners and who are maybe desiring an easy year, you're going to be extremely busy. You're going to be booked up with people coming to you. So how is DNA activated and how your DNA is a movie projector? You know, most people are constantly projecting their past because that's what they're focused on. So when you focus your intent on something, it gets imprinted in your DNA. So it's like your DNA is the film in the projector. So if I'm constantly thinking about something that happened to me, you know, playing the victim, I am constantly imprinting that film and it's still projecting that out. So our subconscious is being projected out constantly. And if we react to that, what happens is we create more analogical experiences, more imprints, more blockages. So sometimes you're going to project something and you don't even know how you created it. The key is to not be attached to that and just at that moment go within and clear the source of it. And many of you have done the level 1, level 2 training, the analogical training, and you have the codes to do that. If not, I suggest you do the training because learning how to clear yourself is going to be the #1 skill this next year because a lot of things are going to happen. So how do we activate our DNA? We activate our DNA by interacting with certain codes that are designed for this. So the codes have a certain frequency. We inhale it into the third eye, which is the optical pineal induction, and that activates the frequency of the code within our entire template. And so we have a specific protocol to do this. Any questions so far? All right, so how is your DNA template designed? The 12-strand angelic human DNA template is called the Diamond Sun DNA template. And the original DNA template is actually built for biological transmutation. Biological transmutation means that we do not leave a body behind. It means we transmute our body into a less dense state. So for example, right now we're in the 3D and we have a carbon-based body. When we go through biological transmutation, which is essentially ascension, we transmute from that carbon-based body to semi-etheric matter. And then as we move up the dimensional scale, we get even less dense. So we go from semi-etheric to etheric, And then pre-matter liquid light would be dimensions 10, 11, and 12. Even above that, we have golden liquid light in the absolute harmonic universe, which is the higher self universe of the one that we're in. And that's where these DNA activation codes come from. So the original organic imprint for health, the original 12-strand DNA template, had biological transmutation and immortality built into it. This is huge because for the last, 35,000 years, people have been dropping the body after a certain amount of years. So it's like the lights in your house just go off and your house just falls apart. That's not the original design. So since this is built into the template, we can regenerate this, and we can restore, not just the possibility of immortality, but the reality of it. Because as you know, there are many masters that are immortal. Babaji is one of them. And so if he can do it, that means that we can do it as well. Now, when the DNA was working properly, there are specific timelines where you would activate your soul, oversoul, avatar, and rishi self. So from age 12 to 22, you would activate strands 4, 5, and 6. From 22 to 33, you'd activate strands 7, 8, and 9. And then from age 33 to 44, you'd activate your Christos avatar cell. And at that point, if you had a 12-strand template, you would have completed the 12-strand DNA activation process, and you could actually invoke one of your 7 higher senses and de-manifest your physical body and ascend. So that's the original design. It makes a lot more sense than dropping the body after 60 or 70 years, right? So in order to understand the 15th dimensional anatomy, it's important to understand that we have actually 15 chakras, not just 7. So here are the locations of the 15 chakras and the actual color frequencies that go with those particular dimensions. Every dimension corresponds to a chakra, and every dimension up to 12 corresponds to a DNA strand. The highest frequency in the time matrix would be D15, and that color is magenta pink or violet. And many of you have heard of the violet flame and Saint Germain, and that's why you use that color to transmute things, because it has the highest frequency. All right, so the relevant history of humans. Most people think that we evolved according to, Darwinism. We evolved from single cell organisms, basically pond scum. And, somehow we ended up as human beings. And when you study the pre-ancient history of humans, you see that that is just ridiculous. Because if that were the case, if we evolved from single cell organisms, then the most advanced species on the planet would be the one with the most genetic material inside the cells. And that's simply not the case, because we only have 46 chromosomes and a lobster has 77 chromosomes. And we're much more advanced than a lobster. Yet, if you study and you delve into the history, which the history is available right now. Many of the ancient texts, like the Mahabharata texts, have been translated. The information is there, and you can go read about this. But basically, the humans, we got here 560 million years ago. And we were actually created by elder races in the higher harmonics of matter. So you can think of them as ultra-terrestrials. You know, elder races, the highest frequency, they combine 12 different races to create the humans. And the reason that humans were created was because Earth, even back then, was in a pretty bad shape. You know, imagine it this way. Imagine you're a creator God. And Earth has been evolving for millions of years. And you have, you know, all of these fights going on. You have all of these discordant choices. The humans are making choices directly against divine right order. Other races are coming in and mixing with the human DNA and distorting it and dumbing down the race. And you can see that Earth is never going to ascend out of dimensions 1, 2, and 3 because the coding is all messed up. It's like if you just went into your house and you started yanking out wires, you know, of the internal wiring and then, you know, putting it backwards. You're not going to be able to turn on all the lights in your house, right? And things are going to start shorting out. Well, that's what's happened to the Earth. And since we're directly connected to the Earth, that's what's happened to our DNA. And so the creator gods, they wanted to restore the original 12-strand template and evolve Earth as well. So they created the 12-strand Diamond Sun DNA template for humans. And so the humans were actually seeded on Terra, which is the higher counterpart planet of Earth, which exists in dimensions 4, 5, and 6. Humans were seeded there first, and then on Earth 3 times after that. So we're in our 3rd seeding right now. And this has been going on for 840,000 years. The first 2 seedings were wiped out by interferences from other races. And so now we're in our 3rd seeding. And we've been rolling around in Earth for a long time in dimensions 1, 2, and 3 because we haven't had the frequency available on Earth to ascend. Now we finally have that frequency available. We have the frequency, we have the codes, and now it's just time to get to work. So DNA activation is the key to all of this. Our evolution is directly tied to the Earth. You know, if we go and poke holes in the Earth, we're poking holes in everyone's DNA on the planet. It's like your DNA, if you can visualize it, spiraling down into the Earth like a root from a tree into the stargates. So when the stargates start opening, we use our frequency to help with that process. And everyone's DNA on the planet is encoded to one stargate. So it depends on where you live as to which stargate your DNA is encoded into. It's no coincidence you're living where you are. So our heritage, the name of the race was called the Turanusium. And again, HU2 was where it was created, Harmonic Universe 2, which is semi-etheric. We're seeded on Earth 3 times by our elder race. Our evolutionary blueprint is called the Diamond Sun DNA template. And our long-term evolutionary goal on Earth was to assemble and activate the DNA for progressive transmutational ascension within an immortal body. Just allow that to sink in for a moment. That was built into the template. Our race has experienced excessive genetic digression through ancient tampering by visitors from other worlds. Indigos are actually part of a modern-day hybridization experiment to reverse mutate the human gene code and restore the Diamond Sun 12-strand potential. because indigos have anywhere from 24 to 48 strands in their template. So imagine again, you're a creator God. You're looking down on Earth. You notice that the original 12-strand template is now 9 strands. So what are you going to do? Are you just going to put more 12-strand beings on the planet? That's not going to restore it to 12 strands, right? So you have to create something higher. And the indigos are actually the elder races. You know, they're the guardians that have that frequency. They're the ascended masters that have chosen to incarnate at this time to help restore that 12-strand template for humanity and restore the 12th dimensional frequency for Earth, which is the key to everything. So all of this plan, it's not just a random thing. You know, just like we have Earth government here, there are councils that exist in the higher realms. You know, there are spiritual councils. There you have the Great White Brotherhood, you know, with Jesus and, you know, my higher self, Lord Kutumi. You have Kuan Yin, Saint Germain, many ascended masters that are looking over Earth and desiring Earth to ascend this time. And I'm going to talk about, you know, the extent to which this is happening and how we're going to have to do it in order to actually make it happen. So, current energetic challenges. As many of you are aware, you know, we have first auric attachments, which are occupants, discordant thought forms, discarnates, portals, which are energetic openings that allow other people's discordant energies in and allows your energy to go out, and wormholes, which are attachments to other dimensions and even other entities in other dimensions. So this is like your energetic baggage that most people are carrying around and they don't even realize. Next, you have identities or ids, which are soul fragments of yourself that are alive and well and affecting you from the past. And these are created from past analogical experiences where your mind just seems to stop. You know, you have a traumatic experience or something so emotional that your mind just seems to stop. And it's that moment when you're fracturing off your soul energy into ids or identities. And these ids or identities have a certain frequency. So you start walking around with this frequency, and that draws to you a whole grid of people, places, times, things, and events. And so until you clear yourself of this, you have this grid around you, and it seems like you're stuck in the Matrix movie. So we clear the auric attachments, we clear the ids, and then we start clearing the karmic imprints we inherited from our parents at fetal integration. There are also karmic imprints from the collective, you know, the human race, also karmic imprints from the earth and ancestral lines. And then you also have karmic imprints from your other simultaneous incarnations that are going on in different space-time zones, all connected to your DNA template. So that's why you have something show up in your reality and you're like, I know I didn't create that, and it's coming from one of your other incarnations. Next, we have the unnatural energetic seals, which are basically the death seals. You know, 7 unnatural seals on axial tonal line 7 of the Earth and axial tonal line 7 of all humans. And we've been clearing these as much as we can. Some of these you may not have heard of, like the Tower of Babel seals, but for those of you who've done energy work before, you can ask your higher self if you have these seals. Now, in the DNA template, imagine your DNA as a clock with 12 hands. And imagine that some of those hands, the energy is running counterclockwise. So those are called reverse fire letter sequences. And the reverse fire letter sequences in the DNA are actually what create the shadow self. The part of you that comes out unexpectedly, where you say something or you snap at someone, and it's a part of you that actually does self-sabotage as well. So you may have a very strong intention to do something, and it seems like when you almost get there, your personality and ego does something to block you from getting that. And that's the shadow self. It creates a lot of drama in relationships. Now, what's actually happening at the DNA level, the energetic level, is you have electromagnetic imbalances. So normally, when you are conceived, you receive DNA from both your mother and your father. So the way it's designed is that, you receive a magnetic left heli from your mother and an electrical right heli from your father. That's the way you're supposed to inherit your DNA from your parents. But due to various electromagnetic distortions in the DNA template, we inherit from both mother and father in both heli. So it throws off the whole electrochemical balance in the DNA. And so it doesn't work like it's supposed to. It's like having, an electronic radio and starting to take it apart and then forgetting, which way the wires go and just putting it back together. So it doesn't work properly after that. But we can fix this when we know what needs to be fixed, and we have codes to actually do that, because everything is energy. And so we deal with it with energy. So if you have these electromagnetic imbalances, this creates the hormonal imbalances during, adolescence, when DNA strand 4 is supposed to activate at age 12. It doesn't activate. The biochemicals build up in the DNA, causes all kinds of drama, and, emotions come out of nowhere, and that's just not natural. And so what happens is the body starts feeding on itself at age 12, starts degenerating, because DNA strand 4 is not being activated. And it won't activate because the zeta seal is on DNA strand 4. So that's why we require to do this work, to clear that so we can keep evolving up the scale. And now you have all of these people with ADD, ADHD, deep limbic system problems, basal ganglia, anorexia, OCD. All of these brain dysfunctions are manifesting from distortions in the DNA. And once you have it in the brain, it requires a lot of work to reorder that, because it's there physically. And so we'll go into, how to do that later on, but basically everything is manifesting from your DNA template. What I was talking about in the various heli, when you have a mix of the masculine and feminine energies in both heli, that's what actually creates difficulty in communication between men and women. And distortions in strand 1 and 2 are what actually create men and women not being able to understand each other, and what is called the male-female rift. What do you think would happen if you just try to deal with this consciously? I mean, can you coach away these reverse fire letter sequences? You have to work with it energetically. So the process of getting clear is first mastering your auric field. So auric field mastery. Then karmic imprint clearing, which is basically peeling the onion. And many of you have already been doing this. Most people have way more karmic imprints than can be removed in 1 or even 5 sessions, because only so much energy work can be done in one session. But as you keep working on yourself and you learn how to do that, eventually you'll start raising your frequency, and all of these energy vampires and energy parasites that are around you start falling away because they have nothing to latch onto anymore. So auric clearing, karmic imprint clearing, J cell removal, and then you could start with the DNA activation. And now we have the DNA masters activation codes, and the highest frequency codes on the planet are the golden DNA activation codes. And since those codes come from the absolute harmonic universe, we don't desire to go into ourself like we go into a computer that's been surfing the internet for millions of years and do like a spyware scan or a virus scan. We don't desire to clear everything, just one by one, because we're in a sense of urgency right now. We have 1 year